Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Everybody, and welcome to Nightlight. This is Neon Twilight with Solaris Blue Raven and me, and we have the honor of being able to share with you tons of information. Solaris and I have been selectively going through The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, a must-have for any spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, inquiring mind out there, a book that should be in your library. Usually it makes a real good doorstop, but on top of that, it's a good read too, and it covers a plethora of material. And so Solaris and I have been going through some of it and seeing if we can't enlighten people in certain different aspects and areas that are of interest to each of us. So, welcome to the show, Solaris.
Well, thank you, Barbara. Pleasure to be here with you again on Neon Twilight.
Oh, definitely. This was such a great idea of yours, and I love the name of the show. And it really has as much meaning as far as an illuminating show as Nightlight is as Nightlight is meant to be. A nightlight in the darkness of confusion, and so Neon Twilight is illuminating the twilight of consciousness and bringing clarity into it. So, our titles are great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they
really
dovetail, don't they? We couldn't have planned that any better.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you said you wanted to do a show that was mystical and spiritual, I jumped on it. I thought that was a great idea, and then when you invited me to join you with it, then it was a matter of, that's fabulous. Now what are we going to talk about?
Everything, anything. It's fun. And the chemistry is really good too. Alchemically, we have a good connection. So yeah, it's wonderful. I'm so glad you're here with me.
Well,
and welcome listeners.
It's nice they're here too. Yes. I have found that doing a show when you're all alone, you tend to eventually talk in a monotone. And if the show is a conversation between two people, it's more interesting to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And
I totally agree.
My intent is not to put people to sleep. So it's so cool that the two of us can go back and forth, and we both have, a different backgrounds but same focus, which makes it, a fascinating, we each have a different perspective on so many different aspects, and we're going to be talking tonight about the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx and the mysteries that are connected to them. And I don't know about you, but my fascination with the pyramids and the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, goes back to when I was in the 5th, 6th grade. And I remember making a model of King Tut's tomb for a project for school.
Wow.
So I was there. I was into it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and have you ever been to Egypt? Have you ever been to the Great Pyramid?
Not in this life, I always say, but I have that familiarity. I can remote it very well. I know where things are if I get over there. But I have not physically been there, and it has been on my bucket list. I would love to go.
It's really on your bucket list. Oh,
It is on
see,
my bucket list, but I don't know. My bucket list is overloaded, and the world is changing.
well, I graduated from a bucket to a garbage can long ago because I had too many things that I wanted to see and do. And while going into the Great Pyramid, at one point was I had a friend who was a psychic who did the Renaissance Festival with me, and we traveled back and forth to the fair every weekend, and so we had long conversations. And one evening when we were having dinner after the festival, she got a fortune cookie, and inside the fortune cookie it said, "You yearn to visit the Great Pyramid again."
Nice.
Now, to almost anybody it would be, yeah, okay, cool. Not to her. The next day she booked a tour with John Anthony West to go to the Great Pyramid.
Wow. Very interesting.
And she went. And it was, and her stories about it were fascinating, and they did the, going in after hours and getting to be in the King's Chamber and all of that. But at the time I was doing gem casting with stones, and I said to her, pick up a couple of little stones from around the Great Pyramid so I can put them in with my other, stones that I do forecasting with. And when she came back, she said, "I had great stones for you." And I said, "Terrific. Where are they?" She said, "They're still in Egypt." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I showed them to the guide, and he said, you don't want to give those to your friend." And they were very pretty, apparently. And she said, "Why?" And he said, "It's mummified camel dung."
Oh, seriously? Oh,
they were very pretty, So
oh my goodness.
probably not appropriate to put in my bag of gemstones.
No. I was going to say, too, they probably have, I'm sure you can find stones somewhere over there, but I think they would be very picky about people taking things and putting them on the plane to go home anyways. Objects.
Yeah, they discourage you picking up anything and taking it away from there.
Yeah,
and
I would think so.
So while I would probably love to have had something from the Great Pyramid, the chances are that it would be ancient are slim to none.
Correct.
It probably wouldn't have been anything that would even speak to the antiquity that's there. But I'm very claustrophobic, and from people that I've talked to that have been into the Great Pyramid, they do talk about how close it is, how narrow it is, how close it is. And that to me, I would think of the tonnage of stone over my head and be sure that the earthquake was going to hit, and I would die in the Great Pyramid. I would not be when you want to be in front of or behind, when panic like that hits. So
yeah, you don't want to make it an official tomb, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I have done remote viewing to it. So I think I've gotten the essence of it without having to be claustrophobic.
I agree with that.
And in Manly P. Hall's book, it does talk about how they, this book was written over 100 years ago. So a lot of the material is from that time frame. And they do give, a kind of an idea as to how they feel it was built. And then after they've gone through 2 or 3 pages of how it was built, then they say there's no proof that the building was erected by the Egyptians even. So, then you get to the point where it's, okay, so they say that it was Khufu, but I don't think it was Khufu either. So do you have a feeling as to when it was constructed?
That's really interesting. I'm not sure about their timelines insofar as how that goes. And I know a lot of people who have researched and investigated archaeologically speaking have said over 10,000 years plus or minus. So if you're looking at that window of time and the illusion of with all the earth changes that supposedly happened, in the Great Flood, I would say probably plus or minus that timeline. And in me, when I look at it, it just seems like it's more about I keep seeing water everywhere around it. So when I look at it, it seems like, I don't know if it was floated to its location, but there's something about the water that gave it its formula. I don't know if that even sounds correct to you, but that's just what I get when I think about the timelines insofar as how it appeared, why it appeared, and then I'm looking at the etheric light station kind of look to it, and that takes on a whole different formula also. So I mean, and then we were talking about this, which is really interesting because we don't really have to be there, but at the same time, when I look at it, the whole construct behind it is geometric to some degree. It's multidimensional, multiversal. It has more of a zero-point transmission, and of course, they discuss the idea behind it being a kind of a power source. So when I look at that, you look at it on the energetic scale of why it was a power source and what it contributed to the grid of the world. I don't think that answers your question. I know I digress. But that's what I get if you're looking at timelines. And my apologies for my dog in the background. I know he's making noise. I'll mute.
Well, that's okay. My cats will knock something over, so we'll be fine.
He was quiet before I started. I just want you to know that. So, okay.
Well, I am of the opinion today, and I have to qualify it with, this is how I feel about it today. Tomorrow it may be different, but right now, my opinion is that it is pre-Diluvian. I believe that the pyramid was built by a culture or a civilization that goes pre-flood. So it would be not 10 or 15,000 years old. I think it's more like 40 to 80,000 years old.
Oh, interesting. So you think it's a lot older. Okay.
And so that would mean that whatever technology was used to construct it was commonplace at the time. But after the flood and after, coming back from the Stone Age, all of that technology is gone. And so therefore, and the pyramid used to have a sheath of white limestone on the outside of it. And before it was removed, a lot of it fell off in an earthquake, and I can't remember how long ago, but 18-something. There were water lines on it, and you could see the water lines. So the Great Pyramid itself had been underwater. I don't know if totally, but a great deal of it. And inside of it, they found salt deposits from salt water having seeped. So I think that it spent a great deal of time underwater. Now, I know there's a subterranean chamber there because I've seen the cutout of the chambers and the ascending passageway and everything. And the passage that goes below the Great Pyramid is very roughly hewn. It's not as polished as all the rest of it. And the theory is that the Romans got in that way, or thieves got in there that way, and that's why it's underwater and it's not as finished as the rest of the pyramid. I'm not sure I even agree with that fact. I mean, it could have been the sewer for all I know, but it feels like it was intended to be there because the passageway goes down there. If there was no passageway, then I would say, okay, it doesn't mean anything. But there's a passageway there's a descending passageway, so that part is underwater, and there, according to Manly P. Hall, it was either where the Romans got in when they went in to try to find out the treasures that were in there, or the Tomb Raiders got in that way. But no matter who or what, whoever got in there, they didn't find anything, which makes one wonder what the purpose of the pyramid truly was. And I don't think anybody's really figured it out totally yet. But
yeah, there's a lot of speculation.
I mean, one of the thoughts was it was a granary, but that's ridiculous because then it should have been hollow so that they could have put grain in it. And there are also philosophies that there are subterranean chambers there, and I would agree that there are tunnels and chambers underneath, but not immediately underneath. I think they go a lot deeper than one would think. So I don't think that they have anything to do with anything current. So it's antiquity again we're talking about. At one point, the Nile did come up to close to the Great Pyramid, which would, suggest that they used barges to bring stones in, but I don't believe that. So it's as much of a mystery today as it was when the first people saw it after the flood.
Yeah, I agree.
And
very much so.
Well, it can't possibly be a tomb, because if it were an Egyptian tomb, there would be hieroglyphs all over the place, and there aren't.
Exactly.
And I don't
I
think
agree.
I don't believe they have ever discovered a mummy in any of the pyramids.
Not one that I would recognize, in the sense of if they put anything in there, it's probably because it was there as kind of a sideshow or a distraction. And one thing I was going to add also is that the pyramid, in my opinion, it seems like it's been gutted on so many levels. When I look at it, when I talk about the energy sounding of the pyramid itself. But to me, it could have been, and I know other people have discussed this, but the idea behind the light sound healing chambers, even if you don't use it for that, there's definitely a capability of it harmonizing with frequency, amplifying frequency, resonance waves, and using that frequency for healing, amplification, and whether they weaponize it, that's another scenario. But I see it as a potential. In other words, that is definitely a potential that they could have used with that particular structure. Also, power generators, bringing in oxygen, water, whatever, for the underground civilizations. If they actually had underground civilizations, that would be another thing you look at too. Like maybe it was something designed to bring in a lot of energy for electricity underground.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that.
I mean, I think it does. I'm speculating there, but I know it can be used for so many different things, and I think that what we're looking at is such a shell of something that was something else that you really have to reconstruct it on a consciousness level. Once again, we were talking about consciousness earlier, but it really is about looking at it from a more than remote viewing, but looking at a very high field of energy and seeing it for the geometrics it is, and then overlaying it and seeing what it could be used for, possibilities, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and, with the Sphinx, I think the Sphinx is even older than the pyramid. And I have always held, even from when I was in the 5th grade and I looked at the Sphinx, all I could think of was the head is so out of proportion. It had to have been bigger and something else, and then somebody with an ego trip carved it into their face, for an ego boost or something.
Yep, you're right on, too. Yeah.
I mean, the Egyptians, they were so into proper perspective and having things balanced, to put a head that was 5 sizes too small on the body just is, beyond belief. And one thing I did learn from actually reading the material is that the body of the Sphinx is one solid stone, but the paws are all separate, smaller stones. I didn't realize that.
That's interesting, too. Yeah, I think I heard about that a long time ago. Yeah. Makes you wonder why, huh?
Well, it does, and there are rumors that there was a passageway, and that, wasn't it Edgar Casey that said under the left paw or the right paw, I can't remember which, was a chamber, and in the chamber was the Hall of Records and Toff's material and everything. And what gets to me is, with all of the legends and all of the things that have been said about, especially the Hall of Records, why the Egyptians wouldn't in some way try to do in-ground penetration, digging, seeing if there is a chamber underneath the Sphinx. Another of their theories was that the actual entrance to the pyramid had to be gotten to through the Sphinx and going down a passageway, and then there would be another passageway into the Great Pyramid. And wouldn't it be wild if the Great Pyramid really wasn't finished and that they never got the connective passageway dug from underneath the Sphinx into the underground portion of the Great Pyramid, so that what we have is something that was not ever fully completed before chaos hit?
That makes sense.
And that
Barbara, really does.
And that underground whatever was where the passageway was supposed to meet to be able to let you go into the upper regions of the pyramid.
Yeah, I could see that. Another point I'd like to make also, you're right about the way they were constructing it. It's almost like they were trying to cover something up. When you think about the paws of the Sphinx and the different, the disorientation connected to the head and everything else, I would say if I were to just look at this from a different, like a parallax view, that those paws aren't supposed to be there. Nothing's really supposed to be there. It's almost like that was built there to cover something else or put it over something, seal something up underneath.
Yeah. And yet, I think they've done in-ground penetration. They've done some of that, and they have discovered that there's a void down there, but they don't want to try to get into it because they're afraid they'll destabilize the Sphinx, which is probably a good reason. Well,
but you look at it though, you realize that Sphinx wasn't supposed to be there like that. The way it looks now, and I can pretty much tell you, I don't think it was supposed to be that way. The face, everything. So to me, it's kind of like, well, I think it's interesting as a marker, but I think there's something. It's a marker, no doubt. So you have to look underneath it, or it's covering something up. No doubt about that.
Well, the Department of Antiquities in Egypt is really very protective. They don't want anything to come out that would compromise tourism.
Right.
So they don't want, God forbid there's another discovery. I mean, if a Hall of Records is there, and I don't think, personally, I think the Hall of Records is in another dimension. I think there may be a portal there, but I think the Hall of Records itself is in another dimension. And, it's just, but again, it's sort of like this building is older, and the Sphinx is probably older than anybody is giving it credit for. They keep saying that a lot of the marks on the wall on the outside of the Sphinx have to do with rainwater and stuff like that. And that may well be, but all of that stuff has been underwater as well. And then covered up by sand probably protected it to a great extent. And, now we've dug it up, and now it's beginning to fall apart again. So
exactly.
I don't think that we've even scratched the surface as to, and I think for power, for energy, absolutely. I mean, people have known for generations that pyramid power will increase the productivity of seeds. They'll sharpen razor blades. They'll do, it's funny. We discover things that come from antiquity that make things better within our society, and we all go, isn't that great? And then we never use it. We never take benefit of it. I know a lot of people that have worn little pyramids on their heads, or slept under a pyramid, and that is a more relaxing, energetic, to do that. It does improve your sleep patterns for sure. But it's sort of like, okay, here it's like we have this discovery, and yet we aren't taking advantage of it because, of course, things like big pharma and big corporations don't want to have their sales in any way compromised. So God forbid you use an ancient technique to do something that will make life better.
Right. Yeah, that's going on and on. You're seeing the breakaways right now with full speed ahead as far as putting people back into that space of amnesia and then putting them into this, codependency on big pharma and everything else, in my opinion. Because we have all the components to heal our bodies. I'm still a firm believer in holistic field energy, where you're just using frequency sound and all the other components to heal the body and just support the system in general. But I think you're right. And it's interesting because when we come from a level of mystery school consciousness, in a sense, we can look at it from the esoteric aspects of what these pyramids were about. And it does apply because of the frequency. And then you look at the other aspects of the power generator, sure, absolutely. So now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nikola Tesla had a real interest in the Great Pyramid as well. So you've got all that going on. And there was obviously for a reason, but I think there's so many secrets that have been hidden, and so much has been sanitized. And even with this particular antiquities over there, I mean, you can't get real data from these guys. And we wonder how much of that has been sold in the black market, these ancient artifacts. We don't know. It's real sad in a sense on that level.
Well, look what the Egyptians were doing in the 1800s. They were burning mummies in the engines of the trains to propel the. They were using mummies to fuel the trains. I mean, you have no idea, who they may have burned up,
right.
just to
destroying
keep
evidence.
the train going.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and we don't need trains. This is the whole thing. We could have gone. Go ahead. I'm sorry, but free energy comes to mind. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, but this is 1800s when trains were, a big deal. There weren't planes then, so. But it's you sit back and you look at the Great Pyramid, and it's almost that it's mocking us. It's kind of like, if you just let yourself go, you could figure out what this is all about. And you and I probably come closer to it than anybody else does.
I think so.
They weren't tombs. We have who is it? Now I'm freezing on his name again. Scott, the one who wrote the Pyramid Void, Scott Crittenden.
Oh, okay.
He wrote the Pyramid Void, and it's interesting because his theory resonates to a certain degree, not totally, but to a certain degree. And I guess I should preface at least whatever I say. I have lots of philosophies and lots of theories, and just because I talk about them doesn't mean that I live them all or I believe them all 100%. It's just interesting material to put out there for people to work with. He's come up with the concept that they have new radar that has been developed that will go through stone, and they've used it on the Great Pyramid. And they have found that there is a huge void within the pyramid, the same size as that ascending stairway that goes from the bottom up to the king's chamber. So it's huge. And his theory is that the pyramid is pre-Diluvian, that a pharaoh back in that time frame, one of his advisors said, came up and said, a big catastrophe is going to happen. The whole land is going to be covered with water. Everything is going to be washed away, and there will be nothing left. And so this pharaoh built the Great Pyramid in order to be a storehouse, in order for people to be able to start civilization all over again. And in the void is seed, is agricultural stuff, are the history of the culture, the cosmology of the culture, and the most important thing is in Pharaoh Egypt, the most important thing is that your ancestors are the ones that stand up for you with the gods, that plead your case with the gods. So it's important that your ancestors, their sarcophaguses, be preserved so that they can help you with the gods. And so he took his dynasty, all of their sarcophaguses. There were 27 pharaohs and their queens. So there were 52 sarcophagi. I think that's how you say it. Well, sarcophagus. And they are all in that void. So he was He was saving the dynasty so that they could work with the gods to help civilization start again. And in the ascending passageway, there are 27 like steps, and on each on the right and the left of the step, there are little inserts where statues once stood. Because if your body is too rotten for your soul to come back into, a statue that replicates you is appropriate. And so on each of these steps was a statue of Pharaoh and his queen. And when the first people got into the pyramid, there were all of these statue fragments all over the ground. So the statues had been there when the first of many that went in there. They discovered that the statues had all been broken up, obviously by tomb raiders, I guess. But those statues were there for the just in case the bodies didn't make it through whatever trauma was coming. What's interesting is the void that they have discovered and that they have pinpointed from lots of different areas has no passageway leading to it. So that as the pyramid was built, they got to a certain level and they lowered everything in, and then they sealed it all up. So whatever is in this void has been protected throughout time. So it should all be there and intact.
Really interesting. It reminds me of the Hall of Records a little bit, what you're describing. But also, it's a time capsule. I guess that's what it is. Because you're looking on that level, the way he's describing it in a sense. I mean, you're leaving a marker, once again, as a remnant of something else designed from our cosmic ancestry to some degree. What it was used for, we can speculate on. But I think that a lot of us who have that old soul, spirit consciousness and have more than likely been there on another timeline, another lifetime, know we have some memory banks that activate here and there. At least I see it that way. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. And the ascending passageway you're describing, so the void, which it doesn't have any way to access it, that just tells me, I keep seeing 0 point when you tell me that. So whether it's teleportation, phase shifting, whatever, I think it's way beyond what he's saying with, seeds and this and that. That's just what I see. I see it as energy, though. Yeah.
Well, let's see what...
That's interesting.
I think what fascinates me about all of these Egyptologists and these people into all of this stuff, they nudge up against mysticism and spirituality, but they don't want to touch it. And so you get somebody like you and I, we jump in with hip boots on.
That's right.
Like, are you crazy?
That's a sign.
And so exactly. And who was it? Well, James Tabor was. I had him on Friday, and I was talking to him, and he was going into the mysticism of that Paul had when he had his transformation, when he saw the spirit of Jesus, and he kind of tippy-toed around it, and I said to him, "You're in my ballywick. I know exactly what happened here." So it's kind of fun because I know that they can't prove a lot of the stuff that you and I talk about, but it's so real that we know we're right. So that and in another 3, 4, 5, or 50 decades, everybody will assume the same thing that you and I do now. But so as far as this chamber that's there, they're going to take a laparoscopic drill and drill into it and then illuminate the inside to see what's there. And he said he knew they were going to do that, the Department of Antiquities, but he didn't know if the results would ever be released.
When are they planning on that, or did they do it already?
He doesn't know. I mean, that book was just published within the last year or so, so I have no idea. But I would bet you money that whatever. Yeah, I would bet you money. I would bet you money that whatever is in there, we'll never hear about it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, this is what bothers me. It's like Indiana Jones, and I can relate to some of this because people have stolen my work in the years. I'm not talking about you. But the idea behind coming up with something that's very unique based on something way out of the box, and all of a sudden people with backgrounds in particular departments decided to go for it, they take everything, they confiscate it, they sanitize it, and they don't disclose anything. And the person that eventually invented it or created that idea, or is ignored. I've seen that a lot, and unfortunately, I think that's not the first time this is going on when it comes down to this structure.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
thanks for the free information. We'll take it from here.
Yeah. Look at Nikola Tesla. I mean,
yes.
he wanted to give everything. He wanted to give things away, so they made sure that he never had the opportunity to do that. I mean,
right.
You're right. It happens frequently, and it's because there are so many large corporate entities that don't want you to rock the boat. In many cases, a good, for instance, is the Bosnian pyramid. The Egyptologists didn't want the Bosnian pyramid acknowledged as a pyramid because they were afraid it would take away from their tourist travel.
Amazing.
Is that not petty? I mean,
yep.
and I mean, yes, they're still trying to authenticate it and everything, but even when Egyptologists went and looked at the Bosnian pyramid, some of them did say, yes, this is a man-made pyramid. They lost their jobs in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
And, from what I've seen, the tunnels and everything, and we've done remote viewing into it, it's a pyramid. There's no doubt about it.
Even the frequencies, once again, he measures the frequencies over there, too, and there's something that's spiking up in transmission, frequency-wise.
Well, yeah, and they went to the top of it, and they were able to record it, and they played it back, and the pyramid answered them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
like an antenna.
So there's something there, and it's like you just want to dive in, and I would be horrible at an archaeological dig. I've seen them with their little toothpick things and their little brushes. I'd be there with a bulldozer. I mean, I would probably destroy half of the stuff that, it would be, you're going to spend years, brushing away the dust to get something out. Why don't you just yank it out? Come on.
Dig deep.
I would.
I would say dig deep, too. Yeah. Do like a few little feet here and there. Go down. That's just me.
Well,
I think there's a lot down there. That's why.
I am positive that there are tunnels under the Great Pyramid. I've been there. I've seen them. I know they're there. Now, they may be a lot deeper than people are anticipating, but if you look at the Thoth material, the head priest at the Temple of Light gave his spaceship to Thoth to go to the land of Kem, and they buried the spaceship at the Giza Plateau. So that spaceship theoretically is buried deep underneath or alongside of or somewhere there underground.
I've heard that too. I kept thinking, well, maybe this is speculation, but the idea behind burying it underneath the Sphinx would be a good location as well. That's what I mean by something's under there. But I'm looking at things as energy, too. When you talk about ships, we talk about the ships of light and ships that are in a stasis. In other words, they're in a different field of energy that they're not accessible like you'd see at Area 51 and S4 where you can go in there and it's tangible. You get a black, whatever, triangle. I'm thinking other things insofar as reactivated through frequency states of consciousness and a symbiotic exchange of communication based on telepathy. For us, beings like us. Yeah. That's what I say. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't digress. We get into these expanded conversations, and I go all over the place.
No, that's okay. I'll go right with you.
Oh, good.
I agree with you. And I also believe that humanity has the capacity. I think humanity in many ways, and I can't remember who was it. Unfortunately, there have been so many people of late that I've interviewed that now they're all smushed together. But I do believe that humanity as a culture has a sort of culture amnesia in that we don't remember the last mass destruction because it was so devastating. And the memory of it is so ingrained within us that there's like a regulator on our consciousness. And some people have been able to break through that regulator, and I think you're one of them, and I think I'm one of them too, in that we're okay, that there is another level of energy to use, to access, to get involved with. And yeah, maybe there has been a mass destruction. The next one isn't for another 3,000 years, so we're pretty safe this lifetime. And it's a matter of stretching our consciousness into the next level of perception, opening the third eye, getting into a greater understanding of where we can take our energies and our powers. And, and it's not powers like, laser beams to destroy something. It's powers so that on a level of consciousness you can reach into a greater cosmic wisdom and get greater understanding and insight into how to use our bodies and how to live in our bodies better and how to be healthier and wiser. And and that's where I see us, moving in new directions. And the element of, there are a lot of people that believe we're in end times. And let's face it, we're always in end times because, today will never happen again. But I think end times reflects more a level of consciousness than it does a change in society.
I agree. Yeah, knowing one's immortality as well. But yeah, you make a lot of sense there, especially when it comes down to the Giza Plateau and some of the other points you were making. I was thinking of the cosmic doorway access insofar as these, we've talked about this before. I know you've had guests that have talked about the correlation between doorways of the cosmos that oversee the plateau itself and also the Great Pyramid. I'm looking at that too. But, we are looking at markers and benchmarks. I think that, we have the components to get there and the consciousness and motion. We can go through any field of energy. I kind of wonder why mankind chooses to go in reverse. It seems like they're always inverting everything. We talked about energy and consciousness and how it all correlates to the body, but then you see these, weaponization of our biodome and, strategic satellites that are all about destruction and amplification of weaponry versus doing something proper with it. So I think that it's sad to see that global trauma that you talk about, the collective trauma. I agree with that. I think people have gone through serious trauma, and I think a lot of it has been reactivated this past year and a half, to be honest with you. So that's something to look at, and people do have to walk through that. They've got to walk through that and rise up, and energetically speaking, So this might be
and I think the other thing, too, that is really important, and I struggle with it, and then there are times I don't struggle, and some, but the reality is we are not the physical body we're in. We're a spirit in an avatar. And that at some point in time, this avatar is going to give out, and our spirit will go above and beyond, literally, into yet another avatar somewhere else, somehow else, and not necessarily on planet Earth. But so there is an arrogance that mankind has that we are the be-all, end-all, and we're not. And I think that what we're going through is like the terrible twos.
They're spoiled brats, I'll tell you that much. Not us, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, humanity as a whole. I'm going to fight you. My toy's bigger than your toy. The whole thing. And I believe that pre-Diluvian, that there was a civilization at a time, and that may be where Atlantis was. That it didn't take place in this evolution. It was before the flood. And that may be where Atlantis was. It may have been, that was the time in which for a while there was peace, there was prosperity, there was sharing, there was a sense of camaraderie, that we were able to communicate with animals to a better degree, that there was a whole different way of life. And something happened, whether it was Venus hitting us, whether it was an asteroid, whatever it was that sent us into an ice age. And then the end of the ice age was the driest days, and then we came out of wherever we were. And but we have the memory of the utopian time, the Garden of Eden time, whatever you want to call it, but it was pre-Diluvian. It wasn't within the last 10,000 years, 20,000 years.
I see.
It was.
No, that's very right on. Go ahead.
No, it's just to me that it makes, for right now, it makes greater sense to me. Yeah, tomorrow I may change,
also,
but
well, I know you say that, but but it's true. But you know what's interesting? We have the ether field always factored into the scenery, because when I look at Atlantis, and I think we've had this discussion before, to me it always seems like it's cosmic in frequency. It's very ethereal. It comes from a different space-time where it overlays and intersects differently. So it's not tangible the way people see it here. At least that's the way I read it. So I think it has everything to do with the ether field, the Atlantean timeline. And perhaps something happened where there was an intersect or field collapse of some kind. I mean, that could be speculation, but I don't think so, because I'm looking at a different scale of frequency and how things happen. You know how that works with our frequency. So when we change frequency or space-time, everything changes, and right down to density. So to me, something massive made a transfer or an overlay or something that connected into that. That's just what I see anyway, but it's very interesting. The Wolven collision comes to mind. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we're on a planet, and things happen to planets. I mean, they hit other planets, asteroids hit them. You can have an advanced civilization that is just glowingly fabulous, but the axis of the Earth could change. Ice sheets and plates could shift. I mean, there are tons of things that could happen no matter how perfect a civilization is. Something could happen, and I think it did. And
especially if it's terraformed too. You have to factor that in. Well, you don't have to, but the terraforming is a big deal, because that creates environmental control mechanisms, atmospheric conditions, right down to our oxygen supply. So in my opinion, I know this place has been terraformed a billion-fold. I mean, I'm sure it has. So you're looking at that also. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Interrupt away. The O'Brien material, and I can't remember their first names, but the name of their book is Genius of the Few, the Creators of the Garden of Eden, suggests that, this goes way out on a limb, but this is, and they've got a website, it's called the Golden Age Project. Their theory is that the Earth, was free of inhabitants, and these people came from another dimension, and they were here to not colonize but cultivate the planet, and they became known as, and there were humans here at the same time, but they weren't obviously as evolved. These people that were here creating the garden were called the Shining Ones, because they were tall, they were Nordic looking, and they literally had a radiance about them that they glowed. And the people that were here on the earth at that time mistook them for angels and gods. And so what they did was they created a garden, and humanity saw it as the Garden of Eden, and catastrophe hit, and there were floods, and there were all sorts of things that happened, but the memory of those people, the Shining Ones, became transformed into what we know today as religion.
That makes sense.
And
very interesting.
They played into the fact that they had names, and they had the people that were the healers were called serpents, and they weren't serpents. That was just their title, and because the snake was considered to be a healer and full of wisdom and full of healing powers and stuff like that, and thereby the serpents in the Garden of Eden and stuff like that. So they were able to blend the whole thing, but they were definitely from another space-time, and they lived a lot longer than humans did. And at some point, they did create hybrids. And I see it all over the place. People are saying that in what was it, another book, great book, First Contact, or Making Contact. And there's a channeler who has a chapter in that book that talks about how there were 12 alien races that decided to enhance the human condition, and so that there were 12 of them that donated DNA, so that we are a combination, a hybrid of those 12 alien races at this particular point in time. So we're hybrid to this planet as well. And, you know,
I agree with that. We're hybrids. Yeah.
We're going generation after generation after generation. But the reality, I mean, there's even a part of our brain as we develop that's called the reptilian brain.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
And the embryo at some point in time has gills. So, I mean, you know, you can see the fact that we are hybrids. And, you know, so we're not indigenous to this planet. We're hybrids that have been planted here.
Right.
But the O'Brien material is fascinating and highly recommended.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that for sure. For a second, I thought you were going to talk about the flat Earth with that, but you know, and a lot of people think about that, and I'm not poo-hooing anything because it depends on what field of energy you're looking at this world from, what dimension you observe it. But I've always looked at it. Not that I'm saying there's flat Earth per se, but I'm saying that there is a sphere, and there is a our biodome is so weaponized right now. It seems like it's the atmosphere. And the shields at our in our sphere are actually created by technology to some degree. I feel like it's been, I want to say, holographically engineered to some degree. There's a lot to do with these terraforming that we were discussing earlier. But, yeah, very interesting. I'll have to read that book. Yeah. I would expect the unexpected right now on the timeline. Just, you know, research.
Well, as one who... You know that once a year I put up predictions for the year, and one of the predictions I put up was that we were going to have more hurricanes that were going to be, you know, more intensive, and you know, I took a look at it the other day, and I went, well, I can check that one off, and check that one off, and check that one off.
Yeah, stop doing that.
Believe. Yeah, sorry about that. I stopped doing them. I stopped writing them by the month because it was just too upsetting. I'll do it once a year, and I'll put it all out there, and people can look or not, whichever they want to do. But I truly believe that there are so many shifts and changes going on that I forget who it was that said it. I don't think it was Eisenhower, but somebody said that the next, you know, great thing, you know, Earth pulls together. We all pull together when there's a major disaster, and that's true. We do. When 9/11 hit, everything stopped, and everybody was there for us. Didn't last long, but we were all together as one. And the next major catastrophe is going to be the threat of alien invasion. Now, that's ridiculous because if aliens wanted this planet, my God, they could have taken it over any time they wanted. So, you know, but that's just logical. However, the general public doesn't understand that. And with the use of holograms, they could easily panic 90% of the population into thinking we were being invaded.
Yeah, Project Bluebeam on steroids. Yep, I agree. Well, I've talked about that also because you can interconnect people remotely with their brains. So you can have a brain-link interface. And you can literally be Project Bluebeam internal. So people will see these things. May not be as a group collective, but they can certainly see them one-on-one. That's even more disturbing. But they can certainly give them their own Project Bluebeam where they're experiencing something that's not really accurate or valid. So, yeah, I think it can get really messed up. And that's part of that whole thing about, you know, stealing, you know, Tesla technology and information and weaponizing it, and then creating this holographic war zone, which I don't approve of. So,
well,
yeah,
no,
but we are the
does.
descendants of the visitors. So, you know, the thing is, the joke's on them because we are the descendants. We are here. Whether, you know, the biosuit is a biosuit. We're definitely beyond hybrid, and we are our ancestors to some degree. So the idea behind, we're going to be invaded by whatever, well, we already are here. So maybe they should look at that instead. I think they are, actually. I think that's why they're full speed ahead is trying to contain as many as possible right now. And the surveilling is off the charts. But we won't get into that, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, Patrick used to say, we are who we've been waiting for.
Agreed.
And I totally agree with that. And it's a matter of, having people understand that they have the power to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And people should take a look at the Matrix series again.
Yeah.
If you've seen it once, look at it again, because you're gonna see how, in many ways, we are living in the Matrix.
Totally.
And
I totally agree.
And it's sort of time to take responsibility for your own life. And I think one of the things that gets to me about major religions and corporations is that they all have dogmas and they try to control the population. And
that's right.
it upsets me to see things happening that are only meant to control the population or addict them to something. And I'm reminded, I recently learned that Hitler was giving methamphetamines to his troops to keep them awake, to keep them sharp, and he addicted them to methamphetamine.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that might happen again, only with the general population.
I'm sure. Yeah, they're addicted to all kinds of things. I mean, they've been calibrated for the misuse of technology. I mean, whether I like iPhones and I love technology, but there is an addiction aspect to a lot of people who get almost neurotic about their, having their technology close by. So that's going on. Plus the other things that are happening with people. I just think that, it's a maelstrom, when it comes down to what their capabilities are to alter people's behavioral patterns. That's there.
Well,
they're not the gatekeepers. They want to be, but they're not. But, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what gets me is, why not just use telepathy?
Well,
I mean,
that's the problem. They're using electronic brain links, which is synthetic telepathy, and that can be a real mind control program if they're misusing it. Is that what you meant?
What do you mean if? Of course they're going to misuse it. I mean,
right. I've been there.
I know. It just, to me, if I really trusted everybody and everything, I'd take a little chip under my ear so I could just hit it every time the phone rang and say, yes, hello. I mean, I would love that. But that said, if that was there, then government could also use it to control me. And I don't want to be controlled.
Or censored. Censor of thought, censoring your consciousness, censoring your freedom of thought, freedom of speech. I mean, we're already seeing the censorship here on the timeline, but think about the brain being censored. You try to speak and somebody rewrites the program interface. I know they can do this because I've been through these projects. I'm telling you, that is no good. And that is where it violates your universal code, your universal freedom. It's way beyond what people could possibly think this kind of violation. So, yeah, convenience is one thing, but interference patterns with your consciousness and where you're heading, and that's another animal.
Well, I have to admit, I just, I do carry the cell phone with me. And
I know.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop carrying it with me and let people leave messages on the home recorder and not be bothered with checking this and checking that. And, it's cool to be able to do it, but, if you get so used to that, there have been times where electricity's been out so that there's no TV, there's no radio, there's no cell phones, there's no refrigerators, there's no stoves, and it's kind of like, holy mackerel, you feel so isolated, and that's not a good thing. We shouldn't feel isolated. We should feel secure within ourselves, and that's okay. If I have light, I can read a book. If I don't, I can meditate. If I don't, I can, work in the garden. There are things that I can do that will enhance my ability to utilize my own energy. And in a way, maybe we need to really be careful about how far we integrate ourselves into the electronic stuff around us, because I would be so sad that, I couldn't do the podcasting anymore. But then, is there another way you could reach society? Yeah, go out and talk to them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are ways, but I find that this is just one field of energy, just like anything else. When I look at what's going on here on this timeline, It's just another dimension that's been simulated and synthetic to some degree. They've created this field of energy. It's highly technological in the sense of the way it's being used, but it's not advanced technology, not the way I'm familiar with advanced tech off planet. So when you look and see what they're doing here, I mean, this, yeah, okay, we can get calibrated and we're good at it. We know how to work it, and that's great. But then when we can switch too, we can switch gears and we can go into a different mode of energy, and I think that's where we're heading. But I don't want to lose all technology just because people are misusing it. I would like to see a balance, and hopefully we will see that. I don't think you have to get rid of 90% of the population to have a balance. As a matter of fact, I know that there's been talk about, possible eugenics program going across the board, but I look at it in the space of, well, if we are that overpopulated, which I don't believe we are, we could easily live off planet. There's enough space everywhere. There really is. There's no limitation, in my opinion. I don't believe in any glass ceiling. So there's always a way.
Well, I would agree with you, and I've had the privilege of being able to drive across the country. Well, let me tell you, there's room. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of room out there, and we're clustered along the coastlines. But there is room out there so that there's adequate space for everyone. Now, I don't know what's happening with taking in refugees and stuff like that. I don't know what the purpose of all that is. I do know, however, that our space program is a joke because there's already a space program out there. So why are they spending fortunes on these tin cans that they're sending out into space when we already have colonies on the moon and Mars?
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a sideshow, and even Elon Musk's sideshow is a joke too. I mean, he looks pretty. I'll make a great sci-fi, but my point is that we have much more advanced technology, and that's a joke and a half to even watch it. And I'm not impressed with the game, just not. And just think about, and I've said it before, nothing against him, but Tesla. He hijacked the name Tesla from Nikola Tesla, and I'll say it a billion times over, he is not and never will be a Nikola Tesla. I see a lot of that thievery going on, stealing free energy, stealing this, stealing that, taking tech, and he's got all those satellites up there, which I know are capable of weaponization because they were contracted with military. So you can't tell me they're not used for nefarious purpose if they so choose. Now, I don't want to get too politically involved in that, but I'm just saying, I know what's going on. You know what's going on. We are very nebulous in our consciousness, and I find that this is an unnecessary path they're taking. It really is. It's very deceptive. It's very, very deceptive.
What is your feeling about Antarctica? Because, at one point in time when there was a pole shift, that continent was actually it was almost like Florida. It was definitely a rich piece of land, and I keep getting pulled back to Antarctica because it does feel like beneath the surface. Now, I know a lot of that ice is over a mile thick, but down below, I feel that there really, I don't think it's hollow earth, but I think there is a culture down there, a species. There, at the very least, ruins of an ancient civilization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I've looked at it before remotely, and I'll tell you where I go with it is, yes, I agree with you that there's facility insofar as there are places to live underground for sure, and that are not, we're not dealing with ice or snow, we're dealing with a very comfortable environment. But what I get the most with is the jump point access. There's a jump point there for beyond interstellar space. It's like a Stargate beyond Stargates, and to me, and this makes sense where the military has been staging so much down there because, in my opinion, I think they're just trying to control and manipulate that entire area because there's so much zero-point access and energy that if we were to get down there, we'd be able to go interstellar and beyond without a ship. We could probably calibrate into a Stargate, and that's just me. But my point is that I know that these places exist. I know that these energies are there, so it's just about accessing them. And when you're talking about ancient civilizations and history, yeah, I totally resonate with that as well, and a lot of that has been, in my opinion, confiscated over the years with these people, and this is why they were always down there. They're always. You remember when President Trump was elected for the first time? They ran down to Antarctica for whatever reason, and I thought that was very suspect for various reasons. And I've been keeping an eye on it, but remote it and tell me what you see because I've seen these places. I've seen the what looks like just a wall of stars. I mean, where you can just go in and it's like a jump point. It's like black and there's all stars everywhere, and you just move right through it. So there's definitely something there for me anyway, and I feel close to that place. I want to go home, and then to me, that's as close to home as I'm going to get before I leave this world.
You were a part of the remote viewing thing that we did And one of the places we went was beneath the pyramids in Antarctica. And at one point we got to a place where there was this huge, it wasn't a cavern, it was more of a room, but it was many stories high. And along the outer walls were literally, I'm going to use the word Stargate, but they weren't Stargates, but they were like Stargates. And on each of them were different symbols specifying where the destination was. And all one had to do is to choose what door they wanted, what portal they wanted to go through, to put their hand on it, and they would be taken there. And this was in a remote viewing meditation that we did. Anybody wants to go on the website and look for the remote viewing button. The meditation is there. You can follow the meditation. I lead you down. I lead you through the chamber. I lead you into the chamber and then out. But yes, that's exactly what we saw when we remote viewed it.
Yeah, that's a confirmation. I don't remember that. Was I there when you guys were doing that one? I remember doing the one with Egypt. I don't know if I actually caught you guys live for the Antarctica. But anyways, yeah, it was a nice confirmation. Go ahead.
Well, all of the meditations are actually there on the website, so you can follow the meditation down and leave whatever responses you want. I think we did 13 of them, and we did stuff all over the country, and then we did the moon, and we did Mars, but and the tomb of the last emperor, and but the one that really, and we did Bosnian pyramid too. That was very moving for me, but the Antarctic one was especially because it was like it was like Grand Central Station in many ways, and there were these portals that all you had to do was go up and put your hand on, and there were people there that were, they were obviously not humanoid and indigenous here, but they were humanoid to a degree so that you recognize them as people. But that was such an exciting time doing those remote viewing things, and we always found it was.
You should do those again. Well, those were great. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I keep thinking, it would be fun to do them again. But again, it's like, well, yeah, oh yeah, the meditations are all there. All you have to do is play the meditation, and you get taken right along wherever we went. But it's kind of like we had, I think, about 100 people that were doing it with us, and I'm not sure that the 100 people would still want to do remote viewing again.
Right.
I might think about it.
Let me know if you do, because I'd be up for that. I really enjoy it. I have a little group that I do remote viewing with, and they're awesome. They're not experienced. They don't call themselves remote viewers, but I'm telling you, man, they get every target. These guys are fantastic. I'm amazed. And I know everybody has a gift. They really do. But what's interesting is that when we're looking at remote viewing, we're observing from afar, so to speak, but we're interacting, we're actually there. But then there's the other aspect of remote influencing, and I think that this is something that I'm dialing into more and more, that I don't even try to influence, but you do have the capabilities. You probably realize that. So while you're there, you can actually influence and see how far you can get. And I would encourage anybody who's out there who's experienced or learning, just go with it. Go with the flow. If you can do it, do it. And don't be fear-based. Just trust, because it'll all work out. That's just my 2 cents. Because they do try to set up barriers. They do try to stop you. They're not going to stop us anymore. We're done with that.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm speaking for those of us who are very advanced. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, when you have a group energy, when you're drawing on a group of people, you plow through whatever kind of barriers are put in your way, because it's not just one person going, it's 15 or 20 or 50 or 100 or whatever. And I do know that in almost every case when we would go into some place and we got led beneath the surface into tunnels, there were places where I can't remember where I was reading it, but we would be taken down corridors and the walls would glow as we came up to them, and then the glow would follow us, so that there weren't overhead lights, but the walls literally glowed. And in many places we stopped, and I remember telling people to look on the wall, and there were whole bunches of impressions for hands. And I remember saying, find one that fits you and put your hand into it and feel the energy as it flows through you and unlocks doors and opens you to wisdoms. And it was really funny because when I felt one that felt comfortable for me, I felt a tingling. I felt the energy. And Bill Brown was a part of that one with us. And afterwards he said to me, I didn't want to say anything, but when I put my hand up to the wall and I said, yeah, he said, I only had 3 fingers. And
yeah, wow.
he felt so that it was very strange, but he said, but it was mine. And he said, I put it up
right.
and I felt, the energy and everything. But so there were lots of, and the meditations were maybe 20 minutes long. They weren't long at all.
Perfect. Perfect.
And yet, we were able to go somewhere and see something. And I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, I've done meditations forever, but that was one place where I remember at the very first time we did it, I stopped and I gave, I let people loose, and the reaction was, as soon as you stopped talking, I lost it. And so from then on, I talked all the way through so that people had a voice to follow.
Yeah, you were a guide to them. Yeah.
It was an interesting time, and I had, it was lots of fun, and all of the information, the pictures of the places we went, the meditations, they're all up on the website. And
your website.
Oh yeah, sorry, my website.
Everybody knows.
It's I forget to mention that. Yes, it's my website. And
yes, it's your website. So if they want to go hunt for it, they can go over to barbaradelong.com.
Thank you. I forget to talk about my website.
You need to talk about it. It's a nice website. It's very pretty.
It's cool. It's lots of fun, and I've had fun with it. So, but yeah, no, I think that we're coming into a time where people are getting more and more and more to a point where they're understanding that they do have the ability to do a lot of things that they didn't think they could before. And because we've got so much extra time on our hands because of lockdowns and everything, it's a super time to get involved in working with those aspects of ourself. And you're probably not going to levitate or anything like that, but you could.
You never know. Anything can happen. And astral projection, well, that's a given.
Oh, astral projection, remote viewing, telepathy, all of that. I mean, that's a given. But I don't understand why people. I understand that the element of survival is really paramount in this particular point in time, and it's hard to get to a place of being able to relax and to sink into a meditative state. But if one can find the opportunity for that, it's a very special time, and it does enhance you on many different levels. Now, you've been involved with testing for the telepathy and the remote viewing and all of that, and you did it under circumstances that were manipulated and they weren't comfortable. But now that you don't have that control over you, do you find yourself going in different directions?
Yeah, actually, ever since certain people have kind of, well, one is deceased, but I can tell you point blank, yeah, I've shifted into a whole different paradigm. And a lot of it is more than nebulous, but it feels very liberating. I mean, I feel like I'm less, there's none of that pressure of being controlled, manipulated, handled, or programmed. So all of that seems like it's been recalibrated into another field. So yeah, I can get through things very easily now, more so than I've ever been able to. So I think all that training and all that interface has prepped me for bigger scenery off planet and the bigger interconnectedness connected to real telepathy, synthetic telepathy. I can still interface. I can still dial in. My remote viewing seems to be very, very on, but there's none of that pull like I used to have. I mean, I had so much oppression when it first happened, when the induction happened. So yeah, things have changed positive on that level, and I kept pushing through it too. You know, Barbara, I didn't let it bring me down. I just stayed strong in spirit and consciousness, and I find that we bring in all that divine energy coming through it somehow, some way. It keeps us going. I should have been gone probably years ago. So yeah.
Well, I know that when I've had those moments, it's like, okay, take a deep breath, turn this to your advantage. Turn it to your advantage. Mm-hmm. How can you use it? How can you turn it to your advantage? And I had nothing like you went through, for sure. But I've had moments where I took for granted and too casually the talents and skills and gifts that are there and that I was tapping into. And let me just say I had my hand slapped really hard. and I have a far greater appreciation of what I'm allowed to play with, and I do play, but I do it in a very kind, gentle, and positive way. The arrogance is not there anymore. I found that the other side is kind, generous, and forgiving, but also not to be taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So
agreed.
So it's a matter of, okay, I got you. 100% got
and you have remarkable gifts too. You really do. You're an excellent teacher. You're just remarkable on so many different levels. So it's a real blessing to communicate with you and have this show with you because you're very advanced in your own psyche and consciousness. I mean, there is no ego in you. You're just gnosis. I get that too with me. I think that's why we get along, because there's that gnosis. I don't have an ego. There's just information. But I love what you do and where you've been and who you are. So thank you. I just want to tell you that.
Well, you're welcome. Frankly, I have found that there has not been a person ever that I've met that I didn't learn something important from. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to one of the authors that I have been privileged to interview, and it's like, how cool is this? I mean, I taught school for 25 years. I have 2 master's degrees, and yet I have put myself back in school. I find authors that write material that I'm fascinated by, and I talk them into spending 2 straight hours teaching me about their material. I mean, it's the coolest thing in the world. I couldn't afford them as a tutor, but I talked them into talking to me for 2 hours and explaining their work. It's the coolest thing. You do the same thing.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that great? Yeah, well, that's excellent. It's a meeting of the mind.
It really. Oh yeah, it's and you know the only thing that's required of me, which of course when I was in school I didn't do as much as I should have. I turn up prepared, so that I've either read their material or I've read their book or I have absorbed as much of their stuff as I could, and then I get to talk to them and question them and give them. I mean, it's the coolest. It's not a job. It's just the coolest thing in the world.
Yep, it is.
And when I stop having fun, I'll stop doing it. But it's like when I look at it, it's like I put myself through it's not PhD, but it's another master's anyhow of all sorts of wonderful material. And because of the pandemic especially, authors can't do book signings, so they do podcasts. And, I am just lapping it up like crazy. It's I'm taking advantage of it.
Well, I would. I mean, I do the same thing in a sense, in a good way, but yeah, I like the digital library aspect of it. You know, in the old days, it used to have the philosophers get together and discuss, but the whole world can listen now. They can eavesdrop on a conversation between two people having a incredible information exchange.
Well, you do the same thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
You find authors
and I love it.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Gosh, I've been into it for a long time. I mean, I don't know why, but I do like it. So if I didn't, I would walk away more than likely. I enjoy it though.
Oh, it's probably one of the coolest things I have ever been a part of so far in my life. Now, I may go on to something else. I doubt I'll go into something else, but I will add to whatever it is I'm doing, because you get to a point where you have all of these different philosophies, and you start to then create a philosophy of your own, moving, forward from what you've gathered from all of these different people, and it expands your consciousness unbelievably. So that,
yep, it does.
And I do think that I'm not saying everybody should go out and do a podcast, though they'll be my guest, but I think this is a time where we have to take responsibility for our own development, for our own growth, for our own expansion, and everybody is going to go in a different direction. It's not two people will have the same thought. You and I overlap a lot, but our backgrounds are very, very different, so we bring a different perspective to almost everything that we touch into.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
it's always a great conversation.
Yes, and people get to listen in and maybe pick up something here and there that is of benefit to them, and that's the point. And I think that the thing that both you and I are hammering on, almost every time we talk, is that we're responsible for our own growth and development. It's not going to school with someone else. It's what do I need and how do I get there and how do I grow? And it's going within. It's not going without. And it's a spiritual journey, not a physical journey. So that it doesn't matter where your body happens to be, it's where your mind is and where your spirit is and where your consciousness is, and how do you expand consciousness to be able to embrace something else, and how do you change your perception so that no matter what hits you, there's a positive in it that you can grow from. And I mean, it's not anything you have to pay for. It's just something you have to roll up your sleeves and work towards.
Right. Yeah, take the initiative. I think reading books really puts them on the path, and I think that's why we got into all the analysis of the initiation into the pyramid and Manly P. Hall, because it just puts us in. Look where we went with it. I mean, this is it's so funny. We do this a lot. We'll do a chapter, we'll go through it, and then we'll start to talk about a little bit. Oh boy, did we just go someplace else? But it's always fabulous. So, yeah. But that's the whole idea. That's what it does.
Well, yeah, and it's two minds working off a singular concept and, expanding as we go. I never get off this show with you and don't feel absolutely juiced up and ready to conquer the world, because you have my mind going and thinking, now I won't sleep tonight because my mind will be going like 20 miles an hour about different concepts and how it's all your fault. And but I happen to think better at night. I don't know. Some people think better in the daytime. I'm a night thinker.
Mhm. It's quieter,
I'll
energetically, probably.
Oh yeah. No, I'll sleep during the day. But see, I'm lucky because I'm retired, so I can do that. But no, nighttime is when I shine. That's when I sparkle. That's when everything kind of jumbles together, and I have those aha moments. And you have to get up and you have to really really work at. Okay, so here's a concept. I was thinking about how we are bridge walkers, that we are spirit, and that in a life's incarnation, it's important to keep one foot in the physical and one in the mystical, because if you can stay in the middle of that bridge, you can bring through information from the divine, from higher consciousness, and you can manifest it within the physical. But if you're too far on that bridge between the physical and the spiritual, one way or the other, you teeter-totter and nothing happens. But once you get in the middle of that bridge and you become the fulcrum of the channel between the two, the flow of energy is profound.
Mhm. Well said. I agree.
And I like being a bridge walker.
You are, definitely.
And
Yep,
I do
that's where you need to
slide,
be.
and I slide both ways.
Mhm. Well, you're a good navigator.
I find the middle quite often, but boy, there are moments when I'm one way or the other. So it's kind of like check in on me and see which way I'm teetering or tottering. But
well, that's that Pisces too, right? Because you have that Pisces, that water that absorbs a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, and Aquarius rising. So new thoughts, different thoughts, and let's see who we can scare or offend, or both.
No, you don't do that.
But
education.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But if we can make people think or question just a little bit, then we have done our job. If we can, stir people into thinking, I have to check that out, or I think they're wrong. Let me see if I can find the right, or whatever. I mean, if we can get people to think and to start searching for themselves, then we've done our job. Because
absolutely.
I mean, the point is not to teach someone, but to tantalize them enough to reach out and find the material for themselves.
Exactly.
Because what's appropriate for me and or you or the next person, it's all different. Because we're all coming from different places. And so our philosophies and our focuses are different. But I've been recently doing a lot of biblical stuff, which fascinates me. And I mean, Patrick on the other side is probably gnashing his teeth because I didn't do a lot of biblical stuff when he was alive because he was the biblical theologian. So, he knew it all. He literally knew it all. He had a photographic memory. But now, I'm stretching into a lot of the different stuff and finding it fascinating. And because I'm not required to look into it, I'm having a lovely time doing it. So that as an adult, it's really a lot more fun to become your own teacher and move into areas that are juicy for you, rather than having to do this course or this course or this course. So I understand the purpose of college, but I didn't learn anything there except how to not balance a checkbook.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I think that the students, the children in general, if they were doing what they want to do, if they were studying what they were really interested in or gifted in, I think they would do much better in school. Seems like
I don't think there's a purpose to school. If somebody is really good at artwork and they want to be a tattoo artist, that's what they should study. And if they think angleworm, raising angleworms is great, go for it. Get the science down and get the business side going and go for it. But we seem to be so focused on, you have to get a job and make a living and get married and have children and then die. And that's just not what life is about. We're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to experience, we're here to stretch ourselves. And I mean, when I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to be if I grow up. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still looking. But I've got better focus now.
I think we're astronauts. I think we're just navigating astronaut. Well, I feel like one, but yeah, time traveler. That comes to mind. Dial here, dial there.
I would agree with time travel. If you had to put a finger in the past of a time frame where you would be most comfortable, where would it be?
Oh, geez. From this lifetime?
No, in the past, any lifetime.
Oh, in the past, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't want to go backwards in the illusion of space-time where there's less technology, less evolution. I'm not sure, but I would like to check out right before the pyramids showed up to see, just take a glimpse and look and see what was going down right before that.
Mm.
So
I
we
would
come back to
definitely.
center again with our conversation.
Well, I think I would want to go beyond the last mass destruction, and if I could go into the future, gosh, I guess I would want to go. I would want to go off planet. I would want to see what civilization has become in 20,000 years off planet.
Agreed.
I would like
be
to
there.
see,
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm sure. It's
You
kind.
can probably
I
dial
know
in and
some.
see that tonight when you go to bed. Go ahead.
Yeah, another sleepless night.
Uh-oh.
No, it just, I know a lot of people that have said to me, and this goes back to when I was doing meditation groups and things like that, well, I'm fully evolved. I don't have to come back. I've done it all. I'm not going to come back ever again. And I used to argue with them and said, of course you will. And nope, I'm finished. Spirit has told me I don't have to manifest again. I don't have to incarnate again. And my answer after I grew quite a bit was, I totally agree with you. Your personality will never again set foot on this planet. However, your spirit may have another thought.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like
Amnesia again.
Yeah, I mean, how could anybody be that? I mean, I've known people that were so arrogant that said, I'm totally evolved now. I don't have to come back to Earth anymore. And it's like, give me a break.
Well, there may not be an Earth to come back to. That might change. We might have a different space-time Earth star to deal with. So, but when you look at it, and I look at it like this, when people transfer out, depending on their field of energy, their frequency, state of consciousness, is where they're going to wind up. Doesn't necessarily mean they reincarnate. It means that they live and dwell in another formula, even close to the physical matrix they had here, but in a different field and perception and of energy. I mean, it's kind of like astral projection. You're in a whole different avenue, but it seems similar. It seems familiar to you, but it's not this real-time environment. So that's what I looked at. I've seen things that are very interesting in the astral plane too. But yeah, I think it can change into anything. But depending on your frequency.
Well, yeah, exactly. I did past life regression once, and people were getting all sorts of great stories of different time frames and everything. And when they came to me, they asked me where I was. I said I was an elemental. And a water elemental, which I find fascinating because I'm afraid to get my face wet because I drowned so many times probably. But I felt that I was an elemental at some point in time, and that I was like, I don't recall there being people around. I just remember energy, and it was a very cool thing, and of course, I did not journal it down, so I don't have, as much memory of that time frame as I would like to have had. But, there were cowboys, there were Indians, there were people from the 18th century. They had great stories. I was just in a forest.
It sounds peaceful. It sounds nice.
Oh, it was blissful. It was just amazing. It was, and I think the one thing that I realized is there were no bugs, or I didn't feel bugs. There may have been bugs there. I didn't feel them, and it was a very cool experience. But yeah, I think this planet has been terraformed any number of times, and it may be again. What do you feel about the hollow Earth concept? Do you go for it or no?
Yeah, I haven't really been diving. I'm not real attracted to it, to be honest with you, but I do know that we have multidimensional fields of energy. We have access points, we have jump points, we have portals, stargates, we want to call them, all intersecting on this grid. So if you look at it on that perspective, I think anything is possible. It certainly can navigate through the illusion of the Earth, and I do believe in other civilizations that can exist here simultaneously, just like we have the elementals, like you were talking about, and other types of beings and life forms can live simultaneously in a different field, eclipsing this one in a different vibrational field dimension based on a different field of energy and state of consciousness. So I think it's all interconnected to some degree. But I think it's a fascinating topic. That's what I see anyway.
I agree with you. I think when Admiral Berg thought that he had hit Hollow Earth, I don't think he had hit Hollow Earth. I think he had hit certainly a civilization that may have lived beneath the surface, but I don't think the Earth was hollow.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, when you go into Project High Jump that they sent to the Antarctic, I mean, there were definitely ships coming out and attacking the ships. So,
mm-hmm.
you know, there was something there, but to me it felt as though it was some sort of jump point's a good place. I was
going to say jump point. It's funny, we start reading each other after a while. It's really hysterical. It's a good thing, though. But the Operation High Jump, when you mentioned that, yeah, because you're thinking of jump points, once again, all those ships coming in, or were they the reverse engineer tech of the Nazis, or were we dealing with something way different? But remember when we were talking about jump points and access points off the Antarctica, that's me, all correlates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he hit Hollow Earth. I think he certainly went into some form of I think it was interdimensional. I don't think he was actually in the Earth when his plane went down there. I think it was he went interdimensionally someplace else and then was sent back, and then he brought the Navy to destroy it, and then of course they got attacked by the saucers. So but I don't believe the Earth is hollow. I do believe that there's molten stuff down there. I do believe that there's a core. In many ways, I do believe that we are on a huge. The planet is a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And
intelligent.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And you stop and you think about.
Oh, go ahead.
You think about the fact that we're kind of like ants on this planet, and every now and then the planet shakes off a whole bunch of us and starts again.
Well, she's certainly doing that now. What's interesting? The magnetic field anomalies that are down there in Antarctica, or I should say up but down. But to me, Antarctica is anti-gravity. But looking at the magnetic field anomalies, and I had heard that there was a power source down there that was reactivated. I don't know if you know anything about that. That's something that we might look at as a remote viewing. But supposedly there was something powered up in Antarctica. This has been recently, maybe a year or two ago, plus or minus. That's just something I've heard through the grapevine. Yeah. So I can tell you point blank there's a lot happening there regardless of that. But the magnetic field anomalies I know are there. And so far as the anti-gravity, the pockets of anti-gravity, there's a lot happening. Well, you know how the military is, and the global military is the same way. They stake power spots. They stake energy. They stake areas where they know they have access points, whether it's a portal, whatever it is. That I think they're terrified of. But you know what? I think they're powerless when it comes down to the bigger off-world design. I don't think they can combat that at all. So if they're terrified of the new incoming things that are happening with extraterrestrial intelligence, I think they're just going to have to get over it. And I think the biggest lesson they have to learn on the global scale is not to control, manipulate, or brainwash or censor people on a global scale. That's the lesson they all need to learn, and they have not learned that lesson at all because they're misusing everything right now. They meaning all these corporate areas, corporate government, corporate religion, corporate institution, corporate military. They're out of control. So you have all these people that haven't learned their lessons, trying to delegate everything on, or actually not delegate, but to control everyone else. It's just no good. They have to be taught, I guess.
Yeah, well, over history, races and cultures have been held under the thumb of dictators, czars, whoever, for great lengths of time. However, today's society will not put up with that for very long. So where like in Russia they had Kaisers forever, that won't people, at least in this country, will not put up with that. There will be a rebellion of some sort. And I don't know what kind, but there will be a rebellion. And I think you and I will see that rebellion. It's not something that's going to take generations. I think we will see the rebellion. I don't know if it'll be, within the next couple of years or the decade or whatever, but there will be a rebellion. And Sylvia Browne, a long time ago, predicted that the government of the United States would change, and it would change more into a it would be almost as though people were, it was a cooperative, as though people, common people like you and I, were able to sit for a period of time and, manage whatever needed to be managed, and then we would go back to our own jobs and stuff. It wouldn't be the kind of thing where you will have a career politician. Politicians are going to be gone. And it's going to be, and it's not going to be the military, though the military may be a part of it. It's not going to be that. It's almost going to be like there will be a boardroom and or a round table, even better, like King Arthur, where everybody was equal, and it had to be a consensus of opinion. But that my feeling is that our government is going to be totally reorganized at some point in time, and I don't know when. But I do know that it's not going to go on. It's not going to last. It won't. It won't survive.
I agree. It's too corrupted right now. There are multi-layers of corruption, in my opinion. Hey, try remote viewing D.C. sometime. I get nothing but a dead zone. I see it as a black hole.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. There's nothing there. There's no building there. There's no structure. There's no D.C. There's no nothing. It's like it's just gutted. And it's interesting. It's just what I call the dead zone. And that's now. And I'm not looking too far off into the timeline. I mean, it's gone. So, yeah, I think you're right on when it comes down to a reconstruct. And whatever they're trying to do with this 1% agenda, if there is one, that's going to go backwards. That's not going to work because you can't have a bunch of people deciding the fate of millions and millions of people who are star beings, who are hybrids, who are not from here. That's not their call. It's not their call to define the perimeters of people's lifespan. And that's going to be looked at from a cosmic scale, on a cosmic level. I guarantee you that much.
Yeah. And I what the other thing that I saw was that the shape of the states is going to be changing.
I can see that.
So and and I've said it almost every year for the last 10 years. The new Madrid line is going to go off again, and that will change and shift things around as well. And of course, I was on the East Coast where I was perfectly safe. Now I'm right in the zone where my China is not going to survive it if it does. So,
well, you'll just hold the space there. You know how to remote influence. Just keep it steady. And also, what about Yellowstone? Did you have any insight on that?
Yeah, well, the animals were leaving at one point, but I don't know if they still are. My gosh, if that went off, that would send us into an early ice age, most probably. There would certainly be a time frame where there would be no sun. That's a super volcano. But there's another one in the middle of the country, not Yellowstone and not the San Andreas, but there's another fault line that is in the middle of the country between the Mississippi and where Yellowstone is, and there's a volcano there that probably is going to go off. I think, the circle of fire has been pretty active. The hurricanes have been more increasive, and so there's an inner rumbling so that we may have a plate shift of some sort that we're going to experience, and, we'll all survive it. It's going to be an interesting time. But hopefully we could let go of the petty stupidity and work together when it does happen.
Yeah, I think we have to. Consciousness has to go up. It has to be raised instead of this spiking that I'm seeing. It has to go way, way high.
Well, if you look at what happens down in the New Orleans area, I forget what they call it, but it's people with boats. I can't remember what they call it. They're all in the Cajun Navy. They're people with boats who come in and they just help each other out. I mean, we've got our society in times of disaster works together so gloriously. It's wonderful. And And unfortunately, there has to be a major disaster in order for it to happen. And it reminds us that we are. It was really funny. I was going to do a class in college. This goes back a couple of years, more than a couple of years. A college asked me to sort of do a lecture on whatever I chose, and I chose to take silhouettes of people and not just the silhouette, and I put them up, and I think I had 12, and I said, one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, one's male, one's female, one's gay, one's this, one's that, one's a Presbyterian, one's a Catholic, and all of that. And all they saw were the dark outlines. And I said, I want, here's the list of who they are, what they are. I want you to tell me who's what, A, B, C, D, whatever, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Just match them up for me and take a couple of minutes because we're really good at that. And somebody said, well, we need a little more information. And I said, okay. I said, and I showed them X-rays of everybody. And they said, well, how can we tell the difference because everybody looks the same? And I said, I shouldn't have to say anything beyond that. I said, yes, everybody is the same. Everybody is the same. We are one family. We all come from the same place. We aren't any different underneath the skin. We are the same. So there should be no designation of Republican or Democrat or male or female or gay or straight or any of that. We're all the same. You should remember that and understand it when you start to categorize people because we're all the same. And I wasn't asked back, but
that's a great point you made. It's all energy and consciousness. I approach it differently, but I understand. And it's really about the suit. The biosuit is the biosuit. But the energy is the consciousness, the frequency, soul frequency. Yeah. And one construct is we're living and existing in a linear world right now, but yeah, we're multidimensional beings. But they don't see outside that, programming sometimes. Some people. That's a great point you made in your class, though. I think it's great.
It was just sort of like, somebody said, everybody looks the same. How can we tell who's better than anybody else? And I said, you can't. There is no better than. We're all the same. and it was, I hammered. And it was like, and they kept saying, well, we should be able to know, one black lady said, I can't tell who's African American and who's not. And I said, nobody can. Nobody should. We're all the same. Color, religion, race, creed, political, religious denomination, all the same. And afterwards, I think a lot of the kids came up and said, that really hit home. And that was my point. If I hit one or two of them, I was okay. And I think I hit more than that. But it's important. You look at the skeleton. We're all the same. It's like the clothes we wear. Yes, everybody wears different clothes, but we put them on the same bodies. So, but I think you and I are here as teachers, trying to put information out there, trying to help people understand the power that they've got, the assets that they have that they haven't been using, so many of them.
Exactly.
And remind them that it's practice, it's working on yourself, and you and I have been in this field for a long time.
It feels like a long time, doesn't it? Yeah, even for me, it feels like a couple lifetimes or before and after.
It has to be a number of lifetimes, I would think. I know that I can trace myself back 60 years.
Mhm.
And that's horrifying to me. But it got me to where I am today, which I like
Mhm.
where I am. So,
Exactly.
and I think you're probably the same way. No matter what you've been
Mhm.
through, as horrible as it was from time to time, it brought you to this point in time, which is a great time where you can really use what you've learned, share it with others, and keep growing yourself.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
that's what I'm finding, that your suggestion to do a teaching show, fabulous idea. And what better way to do it than to let people know that we're still learning too, we're still growing, and
Mhm.
that's the excitement of the experience. I mean, to arrive somewhere only means that you have another mountain to climb. So
Mhm.
it's or die. You got a choice. You arrive, you can die, or you can climb another mountain. And I personally like mountain climbing.
Mhm. Yeah. I can see that. And infinity is infinity anyway. If you look at it, you're looking at death. It's just another cycle and progression into a new frontier. That's another graduation.
Yeah.
You go from one universe to the next. So, yeah, but I appreciate life. I appreciate while I'm here. I really do. And I find that I've always been that way. And I hope that most people do, even if they feel like they're having a bad week, a bad day, or some kind of weird environment, that they really appreciate the moments of life because it's so special. And as you were saying earlier, it doesn't come back. These moments will be lost, We capture them in a, time capsule on here. On the digital internet. But my point is that, yeah, be in the moment. It's very, very significant.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's really kind of exciting is that it's opening the door for us. It's opening, you and I talking is stimulating stuff inside of us, so we're learning more, so that the fact that we're doing this to help others understand a process, it's increasing our own process, so that it's such fun. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not meant to be work. It's meant to be something that you relax into and flow with, and then expand with. And I certainly hope that this evening we've answered everybody's questions on the Great Pyramid. To be
I know
honest,
we didn't really cover a whole lot, but we did. We covered
well,
what we needed to.
I think, to be honest, that we pulled whatever it was about this material that opened us up to a consciousness discussion was the appropriate way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that consciousness is it's a topic that's never ending. It's we all have levels of consciousness. We all stay in one particular place where we're most comfortable, but there's always that opportunity to stretch beyond, to go beyond, and there's always something more. We never come to a place where it says, do not pass go, do not collect $200. It's a constant learning and expanding process, so that it's a very exciting thing to be involved in. And if you catch that excitement, if you catch the joy of learning and growing and expanding your consciousness, then life becomes so much richer and so much more fun. No matter what the difficulties are, there's always a way to rise above them and to expand yourself into elements that hold a greater richness for you. And you certainly have done that. I mean, you've been through some very difficult times with your whole growth process, and I mean that you've come.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. And you took the knowledge and you grew from it, and you expanded beyond it. And not only that, but you've put out a number of really, really good books. And one that is a favorite of mine.
I'm always honored.
Oh, I love your book. I have all of them. I've read all of them, but it's the transmutation one that I just adore. Because
I'm so glad.
Oh, it's I
my very
steal
first
from
book.
it constantly.
Oh,
Really?
special permission. Yes, that was the first book I ever wrote. Yep.
Well, I mean, you've gotten better, and your Halloween book is fabulous too. Every child should have that book. But
I think so. I love it animated. It's adorable. I do like it. I'm very prejudiced with it. It makes me smile.
The illustrations are just as charming as they could possibly be. The story is a wonderful story. The transmutation book helps people to understand how to focus, how to reach, how to grow. And you put it in such a way as that people can adjust it to their own capabilities and their own levels of understanding and consciousness. And it's a step-by-step, and it's beautifully done. The other books get a little more heavy-duty, and you know, and they're good. Don't get me wrong; they're very, very good. But if somebody wanted a place to begin, it would be with your transmutation book, because that one, to me, is a wonderful entree into the wonderful field of metaphysics.
I agree. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's a nice introduction. I agree. Then everything goes fast track. All right, hold on for the ride. Let's go to this level now. Advanced AI.
It is.
Yep.
But you know, it is a cool ride. It really is. And when you realize the power that you have, and you can change your you know, you can create your reality by your perception of it. You can change your perception. You can change the focus. You can change how things, the outcome of things. And you can't make a mistake. You can prolong the journey, but you can't make a mistake. And I think once people understand that, I mean, there have been times in my life where I've done something that was perhaps not as spiritual as it might have been, and I remember, I won't tell the story, but I remember the person I was with said, "Oh, you're going to pay for that one," and it's like, if I have to pay an extra lifetime, I'll do it because it was worth it. But you know, I will privately tell you the story at some time, but it's kind of like, you know, it's sort of like, you understand the process. You understand the journey you're on. You understand that this is just one part of the journey. It's just a leg of the journey. It's not the beginning and the end. It's not the alpha and the omega. It's a stopping place. And after this particular lifetime, there will be others. And you want to give your website and tell about your radio shows? We're almost out of time.
My goodness. Well, I want to say thank you so much. This has been, once again, a wonderful show with you, Barbara. And my website's Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. My show, Hyperspace, is on KCUR Digital Radio Network, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. And, of course, I have Raven Star's Witching Hour, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific on Saturday at Revolution Radio Studio A. And thank you. This has been a great show.
Oh. Well, you know, both of your shows are fabulous, and I highly recommend people check them out now that this show is over. And you're back here the last Sunday of every month, and we will attempt to go into other material.
You're picking this time. Your selection.
It's my choice. I'll pick a good one.
Okay.
Solaris, thanks so much, and this has been great, and I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Good night, Barbara.
Good night. Good night, everybody. This will be up on YouTube later on. Please check us out. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. That's how we know you're there. Good night now.